join us in welcoming Managing Director and CEO of Travel Corporation India, Deepak Deva, and Director General of Tourism for the Government of India, Mugdha Sinha, in discussion with Skift Asia editor Peden Bhutia.
Hello once again. Of course, this is our inbound session. Of course, tourism from and within India is booming, but this is not breaking news that tourism to India leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, if we just go by statistics, in 2023, that's the last statistic that we have from the Ministry of Tourism, India received about 9.5 million inbound travelers. Compare that to the 2.5 billion domestic visits that we've had, and of course about 27 million outbound trips. Of course, Deepak, I first want to ask this question to you. Incredible India, as we all remember, I don't think some of the Gen Zs will even know about it. It was in 2002. And then there was a revival in 2017, Incredible India 2.0. It's been 8 years since that, since that tourism, since that marketing high that we got from our tourism campaigns. We've had no campaign as yet. So is there a need to kind of, take the proven success of these campaigns and infuse them into these fresh social media-driven strategies that will resonate with a wider global audience? And how much should the private sector be empowered to kind of steer this?
So thank you, Peden. Good to be here. I think Incredible India 2002, then there was 2016-17, which was Incredible India 2.0.
Yeah.
Which was a very important milestone in our digital and digital campaigns, and we did very well with that because we had amazing YouTube viewership. Tourism arrivals were the highest in 18-19. But for me, what was very important is we earned $30 billion as a country of foreign exchange, right? Having said that, we are now down to no campaign and no money being spent, which is also going to show on your results, and that is why Vietnam and Japan and the other countries are doing so well. So from my point of view, it has to be a social media campaign, it has to be digital, it has to be well funded. 1,000 crores is what the government has to give as a budget for the campaign.
And
to
just
make it work,
just for context, right now the tourism promotion budget for India is 3 crores.
And for me, the campaign also has to focus on sustainability, and it has to focus on immersive experiences in India. And we should measure the success of this campaign not by FTAs, foreign tourist arrivals. I would measure it by foreign exchange earned. So if we earn 30 billion, how do we get to 100 billion? That is what the government and the private sector needs to work on. So that's my answer to the Incredible India campaign. And the faster we get it going, the better it is for us.
Mugdha, I want to come to you with my next question. It's about, like I mentioned initially, 2.5 billion domestic visits. Compare that to 9.5 million inbound arrivals. Do we need inbound tourists now?
Very good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having us here. And I think that's a very relevant question, Peden, for the simple reason that it's not just about the commercial value of what you earn, the tourism sector or the hospitality sector, which is riding for the last 2 years on the strength of the domestic visitations, which you rightly mentioned is 2.5 billion. But the point is that India is an aspirational country. We are the third largest economy right now, 3.9 trillion. We hope to be in the next couple of years, 5 trillion. And by 2047, we are aspiring to be a $30 trillion economy. We have the third largest ecosystem of the startup, which is also pioneering the new trends in travel and tourism today. So our inbound, the FITs need to be in sync with the aspiration that India has. So that is very important. And also let's look at a larger macro picture. there is a trade cycle theory that I see in the figures. If you look at the first decade of the 21st century, you see that the best years were 2008, 2009, where we got the maximum in terms of the inbound. The hotel occupancy rate, the average return on a per room night were the highest in 2008. Come to the second decade of the 21st century, and we know what happened post 2008. We had an outlier event in the Lehman Brothers crisis, the
Yes.
subprime crisis, which immediately from the peak that not just India but the globe had achieved, we suddenly came down. Coming to the second decade, we find that 2019 was the best year. We had 10.5 million inbound tourist arrival. And then we know that again, another outlier event, 2020, the COVID, the pandemic struck us. And we have been on a positive growth trajectory ever since the pandemic struck us. Last year, we managed to kind of move a little beyond what we had achieved in a year before that. Our earnings, the foreign exchange earnings, have grown from the same inbound numbers. Keeping that in mind, I think we are not understanding that we are in the middle of the third decade of the 21st century. And if we go by the macro picture of the trade cycle theory, then probably 2028, 29 will be our best years. Also because in this particular year, and from today to the next 3 years, we have poured in about 12,000 crores in developing infrastructure, only in creating alternate and detour destinations in the country, building amenities for attractions, building amenities for accommodation, building amenities for the accessibility. Today we have 11 cities with 1,000 plus kilometers of multimodal connectivity through the metros and the subways that we have. We have 100,000 kilometers of road network, we have tunnels, we have ropeways to the remotest of areas, 157 airport, and hoping to achieve 350. Industry, the hospitality industry in the recent budget has got the infrastructure status. So I have a feeling with all this pumping of funding into the travel and tourism ecosystem, we are poised to have growth, very slow and steady growth in times to come. But because of the fact that the inbound is important, the foreign arrivals are important, because any time an outlier event can make you go kaput.
Yeah, Mukta,
So I
interesting.
think the aspiration has to match. You know, you can't say that we have the top leadership, we are a big country, we have the rich diversity, and we don't have people coming into the country. So I think inbound is very, very important for us.
It is important, but Mugdha, you spoke about all the infrastructure that we have, the hotels, the airlines are pulling in their weight. But the thing is that how do we tell the world that there is so much? There is a very, there is an Hindi, saying, "Jungle mein mor nache, kisi ne na dekha." So obviously, I mean, like, we have everything going for us. But how do we tell, if we don't go out and tell the people, if Apple just sat back and said that, oh, we make the greatest phones in the world, and, just did not do any marketing, I don't think they would be selling the number of phones that they sold. Marketing is crucial for this, right?
Absolutely, and I think what Deepak Devraji said about the 1,000 crores, of course, if I got that money, we will be all bang on marketing. But given the limitations that we have, marketing, of course, is the Archimedes lever. It is absolutely essential, but we have two other levers. We have data, we have technology, because the people today who are undertaking travel and tourism decisions are totally banking on data and technology to undertake those decisions. So what we are doing, that we are slightly gaming the system in the sense that we are going to be now using data and technology to do our marketing, because we don't have budgets under the marketing head. And I think this is a great opportunity. We can turn adversity into advantage only if we know how to utilize this using collaboration and partnerships with the private sector. I think that is absolutely essential. And that is what we are building. In the last 6 months, we've built partnerships with a lot of companies who are here. We are in negotiations. We've kind of reached a deal with Agoda. So we are going to do data reporting with them and use that as a platform to do marketing. Because today, I think that we live in a world, two important pillars that we must understand. One is that we are part of the creative economy, where one idea bounces off another idea, creates a marketable asset, and that is what we are trying to do with data. The other thing that the behavioral economics, which is we have to keep nudging people, and that is where our visibility in the market needs to grow. So whatever platforms we have today, whether we have the tour operators, if we can use the strength of the tour operators and ensure that they carry the message of India's visibility, we will do that. So with whatever limitation we have, we will be utilizing whatever platforms we have, whatever people we have, to carry the story of India's, the visible narrative, and make it viral through whatever means that we have. So marketing, yes, and very happy if our tour operators and our ecosystem can become demandiers and policy advocate for getting us those kind of numbers in the budget. Nothing like it, I think.
Also, Mugdha, of course, marketing, of course, is essential. And I want to ask this question both to you and Deepak. The first touch point that a tourist has when they come into a country is the visa process. Now, of course, we've made it e-visa. We are so proud of it. We did a great job. But the process of filling up that, I don't know how many pager form, and the fact that, the picture has to be of a certain KB. I have my colleagues coming in from the US, and everybody has struggled with the visa, whoever has done it on their own. So we talk about, digital India, we want to be this digital economy. How do we ease that visa process? Why can't we just have a simple visa on arrival or a very simple visa document where people can just come in? Because I know that the Chalo India initiative made it visa-free for 100,000 visas. I mean, a tourist who's spending $3,000 for an India trip, would that tourist really mind a $25 and off-season is even $10 visa? Would they really mind that fee? Instead of that, can we not make the process, streamline the process and make it much easier? Deepak.
Okay. So for me, it's very simple. There should be no free visas. I don't believe in free visas. If somebody's decision to travel to India is going to change because of $25, he or she shouldn't travel to India.
Exactly.
I think the point here is that going back to 2016, I think the major change after the Incredible India campaign was e-visa for tourism in India.
Correct.
Now we are at a point where you're absolutely right. The process needs to be made simple. The technology needs to be upgraded because we'll have more visas applied for. And I think the second thing is that you really need to look at how to make it all very simple. So maybe there's an app, which is the Ministry of Tourism's app, which has a visa application process in it, right? And I think what is also very, very important is that we should look at a 48-hour visa. 40% of people transiting, traveling to India on Air India in the future are going to be transiting through Delhi or Bangalore or Bombay, wherever the flights go from. That 40% of those people should be given free or whichever shape or form, 48-hour visas. That could be offered free because they're going to come and spend $200, $250 a day in India.
So basically work with the
Yeah,
airline.
so we have to be a little smart about our visa story. Make it simple. Make sure it's not free. Make it simple and think of what happens in those 48 hours when people are transiting through India. Should we make it attractive for them to come and spend money in Delhi?
Mugdha, what are your observations?
So I think in terms of the electronic travel document, India has been a pioneer. There are a lot of countries who are emulating our example, learning from us the way we do, because we give out the maximum number of passports and visas in the country today. But yes, I do agree. We have ETA agreements with about 178 countries to about 77 countries. We give e-visa facilities, which is a paperless document. We have 19 categories under which we give visa, in which the business visa comes in about 48 hours. I was talking to Chris last night, and he told me his visa came in a couple of hours, not even 48 hours. Yes, there is an issue with the simplification of the process. We can definitely make it simpler. Our Honorable Prime Minister, in fact, believes in a one-page application form for most things, and that is what we are right now working with the Ministry of Home Affairs. We are also working on simplification of the MICE visa, which is a new category that we are working with the MHA, because we like to grow this sector and we want to have a dedicated visa. India is also very fortunate today to have two kinds of e-medical and e-Ayush visas, which I don't think many countries have, which promote the medical value tourism and the wellness tourism in the country. Yes, we are always game for simplifying the processes, enhancing the technology in terms of the process to make it simpler, to make it quicker. Scale and speed is what we are focused on, and I can assure you that in a couple of months you will see the work that is happening at the back end of the algorithm, and to ease out the whole process of travel through the visa process system.
If I may just add one more point, I think
Yeah, sure.
what is very important for the simplifying the entire process is also having it in multiple languages. There are people traveling from all over,
Okay.
so they
Yeah,
should
not
be
just in English.
Not just in English. So that would definitely make it very simple, especially if you have a great app that can, one point where you enter and get everything for India.
Mugdha, you made this point about the e-MICE visa as well. And MICE was, in the fourth quarter, I believe, India was the top inbound market for US MICE travel. Now, how about trying to tap that market and trying to retain these people and we have some beautiful convention centers that have come up. So how about trying to tap that market? Because the Indian MICE, again, sector is something that everyone looks forward to.
Yes, you're absolutely right. We are very much focused on the MICE business in the country, because I think that can get us the long stayers, the repeat visitors, the high spenders in the country. And also because it matches with the aspiration that India has built in the couple of years, especially after India's leadership of the G20, where we did 200 meetings across 60 cities. Today, we are very proud to say that India has the largest network of convention centers across the metro, the tier 2 and the tier 3 cities, which can cater anywhere from a meeting for 50 upwards of 7,000-8,000 people. Several convention centers have been added in the NCR Delhi, as we know, the Bharat Mandapam and the Yashobhoomi. We've also this year done three things very important. One, because the MICE business has a completely different vocabulary from the leisure business.
Correct.
We are also looking at encouraging and incentivizing the PCOs, which are the professional conference organizers, and accrediting them so that the world knows who are the accredited PCOs in the country and put them on a portal so that people can then do business with them, and they also have a sovereign guarantee of being the dedicated PCO operators in the country. The second thing what we have done is India has applied for the ICA membership. We are almost on the last leg of the journey, which is, I think, something which will keep us part of the global conversations that will be happening and allow our PCOs networking opportunities through the ICA membership, and also access to a whole lot of data, which is very, very important to be able to bid for international conferences and get those international conferences here. And the third important thing is that we are continuously speaking to our ministries, departments, and the provincial governments, because we want them to understand the vocabulary and also the market behind the Meet in India campaign that our Honorable Prime Minister started last year, when last year when we did a GITB focused on the Meet in India. Also, this year's GITB, which is the Grand Indian Travel Bazaar, which is taking place in Jaipur in Rajasthan, from the 4th to the 6th, we have invited Mr. Senthil to do an industry session on MICE in Jaipur to bring more traction to this whole understanding. And we are also keeping track of the data, because our ranking currently is not something that we are happy with, but we want to be able to work very closely with the hospitality sector, with the convention centers, with the states, encourage them to become part of the MICE Bureau and bid. We are going to now very seriously look at the international events that we can bid out and bring them to India. In fact, two very important events are happening this year, which is one is happening in August in Mumbai, and we are very closely working with the landscape architects, and their international conference of the landscape architects is happening in Mumbai. And there's one more very important international rotating conference which is coming to India. So this is very important both from the aspirational point of view and also from the commercial point of view, and we are very, very seriously invested in getting this business model right for us in the country.
Mugdha, it's interesting to know that we talked about visas, we talked about MICE, that the Ministry of Tourism is thinking on those lines, and there is something going to be done about it. It's just I don't know how much time it's going to take, but you have your mind on it. But Deepak, I want to ask you about, is there a lesson that we can learn from destinations like Vietnam? Like last year, Vietnam got about 17.6 million tourists, right? Japan, let's not even get there, 37 million tourists. And even a small place like Sri Lanka, it's pulling way above its weight, right? 2 million tourists, over 2 million tourists. So, of course, with the dwindling marketing budget, is there a need to, look at craft new strategies and, do something differently and learn from these destinations?
See, I don't believe that we can increase inbound tourism without marketing. I mean, let me be very honest, we can think of any, there are two parts to it. One is getting the customer here and then making sure the customer experience is fantastic. Getting the customer here is the first step. We can talk a lot about the customer experience when it comes to sustainability, cleanliness, facilities. That is an endless discussion. But first you have to get the customers here. And how did Vietnam get them? And how did Japan get them? Japan, they had an advantage. The yen crashed, right?
Yes.
So suddenly it became affordable. But that was not the only reason. Japan is one of the destinations you want to visit before everything else.
Even the rupee is tumbling. So
Yeah,
why is it?
but the point is that Japan was at the right place at the right time, and more important, Vietnam just did it right. The infrastructure, all of that has been built. They were ready after COVID. They opened late, but they were ready after COVID to build and give this whole experience to the guests. So their numbers just flew. Our numbers will only move if you spend tourism, if you spend the marketing money. And not only that, you need PR agencies overseas to do things right. You need the embassies to be involved. It's various processes and various steps that we need to take to make sure that the money spent is gets us the right result. And the result is tourism dollars.
Also, Deepak and Mugdha, I want to ask both of you this question. There is also, we also struggle with the perception challenge. Whenever there is an untoward incident in India, the first thing that takes a hit is travel, right? So how are we going about reassuring, a single female traveler to come and have a great, of course, we had the Incredible India 2.0 campaign that, about the single female traveler. But how can we go about reassuring those travelers that India is a great place to be in?
So I think perception management and positioning India as a safe, clean destination is very, very important. There are a lot of things we are doing. Marketing is, of course, one. There are also a lot of opinion-based surveys which happen in the country, whether your country is safe to walk at night, whether your police reaches on time to bring assistance. So I think we are also working on a whole lot of those surveys to understand for ourselves what are the things that we can do better, not just for the solo women travelers, but also for the public at large who wants to visit the country.
Mm-hmm.
And we have employed a whole lot of influencers, and we are extending fam trips to a lot of people from abroad who would like to come and experience India, travel on their own, and we are facilitating that. So while we may not have the comfort of doing this through our marketing budget, we are doing it through our fam trips. We are also using our engagement with the IRCTC, which runs a couple of luxury trains, to allow people to see various parts of the country and to experience that, an aberration and an outlier event should not deter you from coming to India, because if you start looking very closely at other countries, there are various variations in terms of the safety, and also various countries also advise you don't go to the downtown alone and things like that. So I think that is there in all the countries, but yes, while that is there, India must also rise up to the occasion and ensure that the Atithi that comes here also goes back with a good, pleasant experience. We are working on that. It involves not just the government, but also involves a lot of civic sense and behavioral change. So I think that campaign through the Yuva Tourism Clubs, through the schools, through the colleges, and also everybody taking ownership. Because everybody gains if the image of the country goes up. It either helps you in your balance sheet, or it helps you, the image of the country, the goodwill, the brand of the country helps everybody. So I think it should be not just the government. We should not just be pointing at the government and say, what are you doing to make the country safe? I think all of us as units of the country should also take it upon ourselves, and not just because we want to get the foreign tourists. It is also because of us.
Exactly.
We also live in the same country. We must ensure and extend that neighborly kind of an attitude to everybody around us, to make everybody feel not just safe, but also comfortable, I think.
Yeah.
There are slightly different things, but
Sorry,
we need to
Mudha,
do
I know
both.
we are overshooting the time, but I would like Deepak's take on it, because they are the first point when it comes.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, this is absolutely the right approach, because it's not just the government's problem. But I think what we need to do is we need to approach it differently. We need to approach it through technology. If we can get sentiment analysis of 90 people saying that they had a great time, it will overrule all the narrative will start changing. Yes, there is a problem. We acknowledge and accept that there is a problem for single travelers and all of that. There is a problem, but it will slowly get eradicated. At least people will start feeling safe. People will not travel to India if we don't address it head on. And whenever there is an incident, sadly there have been, whenever there is an incident, we have to approach, our crisis management has to be better. As the private sector, and the government together should approach this, and the crisis should be handled better. We don't know how to handle crisis. We're all looking, oh God, this happened, now what do we say? There has to be a proper crisis management like other countries approach these. You think it doesn't happen anywhere else in the world? It happens everywhere. They just manage the crisis better.
Thank you so much.
Just one word, if I can say, to all people who are coming to India or crisscrossing from within the country, please also ensure that for a little penny pinching, you are not, booking yourselves through people who are not accredited. So if you use good accredited, known travelers, I think there's some comfort that you will also gain in your travels. And we have a portal that enables you to look at who are the government accredited homestay or hotels or the tour and travel operators. So if you get stuck in making a choice, please reach out, because I think that is, if you plan safely, you will also be able to travel safely. I think that is just one word of caution.
I think that's a very essential travel tip coming from the DG of Tourism in India, that always go through accredited agencies. Thank you so much, Deepak and Mugdha, for this. I know I had many questions, but I'm sorry, sadly, you overshot the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.